All right. This is a game that I played just the other day that I was going to put up and see what you guys thought about it. But this is using the London system, pretty much. Um, and as you can see here, we started out with D4, which is, how the London system starts. But it wasn't a bad game. To see what you guys thought about it. I've been trying to use the London system a little bit here lately and analyzing it. But, we got D2, D4, D7, D5. Then we got bishop to F4. Pretty much getting the bishop out, trying to break loose from the pawn chain that's getting ready to happen. And then we got E7, E6. And then we got knight going to F3. Okay. We got H7, H6. And I think that was just to keep my knight from coming down. And maybe preparing to push that G pawn up to G5 to challenge the bishop. Usually when I see something like this, I usually end up shooting up the H pawn up to H4. But I decided not to do that this time because the guy I was playing, he pretty much, I played him once before, and he really didn't impress me all that much when we played the last time. But, we'll see. Then I decided to go E2, E3. Then he ends up going C7, C6. And pretty much this is all basic for the London. He's pretty much coming at me anyway. I think he's just trying to kind of mirror moves a little bit and preparing for what I'm getting ready to do. But I decide at this point, if he's going to do that, then I'm going to go ahead and do it. The Ginger GM would be proud, so I went ahead and played H2 to H4. Early game, this is only the fifth move, and I figured, why not? I've done this against this guy before. We'll see how this goes. And this is all online matches that's being played on chess.com and Leeches. Now, this one here is from chess.com, but knight G8 to F6, and I went knight B1 to D2. So kind of giving support to my knight, and hopefully thinking about ideas of pushing that C pawn up to C4, getting my bishop out, just continue my development and try to maybe take down some pawn structure that he's setting up on his queen side. Even though I'm going to attack everything on the king, I still got to worry about that queen side right now. Bishop F8 to E7. I really thought that he just done this just so he could get ready to castle. C2, C3, knight B8 to D7. So he's trying to set up to give his knight a little bit extra on it. It's protecting the knight. Plus, he's got ideas that he could push his C pawn now and it be guarded. There's several things that he could do at this point. But I go ahead and I play bishop F1 to D3. And just more or less directing it toward that king side to see if he does castle that way, just maybe have pieces to attack that way. And he does. He castles. He ended up castling king side. And queen D1. I put it over on C2. Give a little bit of backup to that bishop in case it decides to go in. And then we got rook F8 to E8. He's trying to x-ray my king on that E file. And I'm good with that. A lot of people do it. And a lot of people move that there. They don't even know why they move it. I know why they move it, but, a lot of them don't. They just do it because they've seen GMs do it. They've seen other people do it. So, knight F3 to E5. Pretty much I'm trying to tempt him into taking my knight. Bishop E7 to D6. And he done that. I really thought that should have been done a long time ago, but I think he was just playing a waiting game. So I decided to go ahead and castle queenside. And I've already committed that I'm going to push everything I got toward the king side. Queen D8 to C7, F2 to F3. I know that this is not probably what I should have done, but You know, he's got, when you really look at that knight of mine that is actually sitting on e5. If you really look at it, we've got a knight attacking, a bishop attacking, queen's behind this bishop, x-ray attacking. I mean, it's attacking. Then the only thing I've got defending it is I've got a pawn and a bishop. So you got 1, 2, 3 attackers, 2 defenders. So if he ends up deciding to take, then I'm going to end up losing and I'll at least be down a pawn if he ends up deciding to take that. You know, and I looked at it and I thought, you know, f2, f3, yeah, it's a pawn, but it really needs, if I'm going kingside, I really need to start getting ready to attack. So, and he did. He took it with his knight. Knight d7 took e5. Then, you know, pawn takes e5, the d4 pawn. Then we got bishop d6 takes e5. Then we got bishop f4 takes e5. Then we got queen c7 takes e5. And like I said, that puts me down a pawn. His pawn structure is still a little bit better, but mine's not too awful bad. Rook d1 to e1. Otherwise, I was going to end up losing another pawn. You know, you got to at least guard it a little bit. Queen e5 to d6, he pushes back. g2, g4. That is just going directly at his king. I need to start pushing that way. And just because, even though I went down a pawn earlier, I'm glad I pushed this f2 to f3, because you can really see that if I wouldn't have, I'd never been able to push that g4 pawn at this point, because knight would have just took it. It would have been undefended. I just couldn't have pushed it at that time. It would have cost me another 2 moves. But we got e6 to e5, and then g4, g5. h6 takes g5, then h4 takes g5. Now I've created an open file for my rook. And I've got a tempo going into it, attacking his knight that is sitting there on f6. So, you know, he's got a couple options. He can move the knight, he can do a couple things, but, you know, he decides that he's not going to move the knight. He pushes e5 to e4, which led to f3, end up taking on e4. Then we got knight f6 takes e4. We got knight d2 takes e4. Pawn on d5 takes e4. Then we got bishop d3 takes e4. Now, you know, pretty much I'm backup material. It's even material. The only thing for black at this point is that he has an undeveloped bishop. He hasn't connected up his rooks. He hasn't got them active. Whereas you can see, even though I've got 2 pawns that are kind of isolated out here, I've still got my development going. And it's not hard for me to get to guard these pawns and defend. Now, you know, his next move was g7 to g6. And whenever he played this, I looked at it for a few seconds, and I was trying to figure out what was the best move that I possibly could have done. And the best move that I come up with was rook h1 to h6. Because at this point, you know, when it goes to here, he's really got to think, because he's got to make a move, because I've got ideas of this bishop sacrificing here on the g6 square. Because as of right now, the way it sets, depending on what he moves and what he does, bishop would take on the g6, pawn would take back, then rook would take check, which would pretty much have his queen stop. Queen would take rook, queen would take queen, and then that's check again, and it would be, at that point, it would be 2 rooks and a bishop versus a queen. But I would have had more pawns, and he'd have had to deal with that. And I think I would be winning at that point. But, and I think he really did see this whenever I played the rook there, because he went rook e8 takes e4. And I mean, he played that automatic. Just as soon as he seen the rook hit, then you got queen takes on e4. So now, you know, it's a queen, bishop, and rook versus queen, 2 rooks. Bishop c8 to f5 challenges the queen. queen e4 to h4, put more pressure going toward the king. And Fritz is now, as you can see, Fritz is saying that his best move was right there. He should have went king to g8, is what it's saying. But he ended up playing queen to e5. Yeah, he went queen d6 to e5. I really don't know 100% why he would even attempt to do that, except to guard against the rook, because rook would have went down, take, and then I'm down on material. So that would have been the only reason that I could think. But I wasn't even thinking about putting that rook there. The rook was going to go right here. That's where I was planning on putting the rook. But apparently he's seen that. I mean, it never even crossed my mind. Just because whenever I seen the queen land there, it was just a material loss. But anyway, I went e3 to e4, but you can see here Fritz had other variations, rook h6 to h7, But I ended up going e3, e4, challenge the bishop. It pretty much forces him to move it. So we got bishop f5 to e6, and then rook e1 to h1. Now I'm tripled up, and when the rook hits h1, it's pretty much he has nowhere to go. He literally has nowhere to go, because now his idea of the queen taking on the h8 is pretty much gone. And the only reason I even come across that idea was just because he moved his queen to e5, and I knew that if he would think that was going to be enough protection. So if I was to swing another rook over, I would be sitting pretty decent on that. And if you notice, I've still got my two little isolated pawns here. My two little pawns, I've still got them guarded. Queen's guarding both of them. There ain't nothing really that can take them. I'm surprised he hadn't tried to move the king or get this rook out in the open somewhere. But anyway, when I moved there, he ends up moving his king. He went king g8 to f8. And I really don't think that was the best move. Let's see. Fritz has got it as, Fritz has got it as probably the best move. As you can see, when it runs its analysis, the green's good. So yeah, Fritz is saying that's his best move. Rook goes down, check, forcing the king to move. And it also ends up winning me a rook in this position. So king f8 to e7, and rook takes rook on a8. And whenever I got to this, I really didn't see no big deal in it. I thought, yeah, I've got it won now. Then he went queen e5 to c5. I think the only reason he went there was just pretty much to protect this pawn over on h7. That's the only reason I can think. I'm not 100% sure, but I think that's what he done, which I'm not even really worried about that pawn. Some people are material grabbers, and I am sometimes, depending on the situation, but as of right now, I ain't really worried about that pawn. He should have been trying to protect that king a little bit better. So I went queen h4 to h8. This allows me that if I want, I can come across the back file, check a couple times. I also have my queen that can end up going to f6. That can cause a check there, maybe leading to material. But it all depends on him and his next move, So he went bishop e6 d7. Now, that right there, I do not have the slightest clue why he done this. I guess he thought that my queen was going to come and sit on this e8 file and check him, or maybe my rook. But he didn't see the mate coming. when he done this. If he'd have seen the mate, then it would have been totally different. The bishop was fine where it was at. And the mate is queen h8 to f6. He has nowhere to go. He pretty much blocked off his escape route whenever he moved that bishop. I had no intentions of even checking him on that back file at the time. I was going to put my queen there anyway just to run him up the board a little bit, because I knew if I got him up the board, I'd have a better chance at mating. Because if we go back and say he left the bishop there, and you can see that it's saying it's bad move all the way around. His best there's his best move. Would have been queen right there. That would have been his best move, which would have checked me. I'd have had to move. And, if I'd went there, boom, check, boom, I couldn't take. I wouldn't be able, when he checked there, I wouldn't be able to take my king to a1. I'd have to actually go here. So, and at that point, it's, that's all you really could do at this point. And then, what are you gonna do? You got, so he does move bishop there. Ends up making me have to move my rook. But there's a ton of variations, man. It could have turned out to be a totally different game. And I hadn't really looked at it, but, when you get to this point right here, and it's bishop up, he blocked it off. They could have went a totally different way. This was only 30 moves. He just didn't see the mate, and it happens. Happens to me every once in a while. But hope you guys enjoyed the video, and play around with it. Look at this. Load it up. If you got an engine, load this game up, and check out the other variations of what could have happened if you go from this position. There's a lot. Check it out. But you guys keep playing chess. Have fun. And if you got an exciting game, just let me know. I'll check it out. We'll try to put some games up that GMs have played, and we'll go over it. But you guys have fun, man. And keep playing. Later.